The day I married Huoju, he was having a secret meeting with his first love Lu Shishi in the Buddhist hall. After my rebirth, I directly lifted the bridal veil and threw the marriage certificate in his face. "General, let's divorce," he sneered. "What trick are you playing now?" I turned around and married his most hated political rival, Mu Bohan. Hu Barju barged into the bridal chamber with reddened eyes. "Lu Sixi, you are shameless." I smiled and sipped the nuptial wine. "Oh, I am about to consummate my marriage with my husband. General, do you want to stay and watch?" The news was told to me by my dowry maid Xiao Tao, her face flushed, stammering. She still had bits of fallen leaves from the old locust tree outside the Buddhist hall on her head. I sat on the wedding bed covered with a bright red mandarin duck quilt, the pure gold twin lotus bridal veil on my head heavy. Everything before my eyes was blood red, exactly the same as my previous life. In my previous life, I also sat like this, heart filled with a maiden's shyness and anticipation. Waiting for my husband to lift the veil, I waited from dusk until deep into the night, until candle wax piled up on the gilded candlestick. Until the noise from the front courtyard completely died down. Only then did he return, covered in night dew and a faint scent of sandalwood, perfunctorily lifting the veil and saying to me, "Tired, let's rest." I was foolish then, thinking he was really tired. Only later did I learn that he had been in the Buddhist hall, keeping company with that frail and sickly Miss Lushi who needed to calm her mind before Buddha for the entire night. Lu Shishi, his cousin, his first love, and the apple of his eye, and me, Lu Sixi. I was nothing but a pawn he used to win over my father, Minister Lu, and consolidate his power in court. A pawn that could be casually discarded, even crushed, once it had served its purpose. Thinking of this, a sweet metallic taste surged up my throat, not from heartbreak, but from hatred, a bone-deep, heart-wrenching hatred. In my past life, I was foolish, I endured, I swallowed my pride. I managed the general's manor for him, showed filial piety to his picky mother. And even when he went to war, I mobilized all of the Lu family's connections and wealth to secure his provisions and supplies, and what did I get in return? The monstrous accusation of the Lu family colluding with the enemy and committing treason. My father was tortured to death in prison. My mother hanged herself. My younger brother, only 13 years old, was exiled 3,000 li and died in the miasma-filled southern frontier. And I was personally fed a bowl of poison by his own hand. He said, "Sixi, don't blame me. Only with the Lu family's downfall can Shishi rightfully become my wife. You've occupied her position for too long." The day I died was also a day of celebration draped in red. He married Lu Shishi with a 10-li bridal procession, the whole city rejoicing. My soul drifted above the general's manor, watching that blinding red, listening to the clamoring drums and gongs. And I coughed up tears of blood when I opened my eyes again. I had returned to my wedding night. The bridal veil hadn't been lifted yet. There is still time for everything. I suddenly raised my hand and tore off that annoying veil myself. The golden tassels hit my face, stinging a little miss. Xiao Tao was startled. I ignored her, stood up, and walked to the vanity. The bronze mirror reflected a young, beautiful face, still carrying traces of childishness between the brows and eyes, lips dyed bright red with rouge. What a foolish face. I grabbed a wet cloth and scrubbed the rouge off my lips, harshly rubbing until they hurt, revealing their original pale color. Then I removed the heavy phoenix crown and pearl hairpins from my head, leaving only the simplest jade hairpin to hold up my black hair. "Miss, what are you doing?" "The general hasn't arrived yet." Xiao Tao was so anxious she was about to cry. "He won't come." My voice was calm, sounding strange even to myself. "He is in the Buddhist hall with his sweetheart." "Go bring me the marriage certificate." Xiao Tao froze. "Bring it." I emphasized my tone. Xiao Tao tremblingly rummaged through the dowry chest and took out that gold-embossed bright red marriage certificate. I took it, the silk texture cold and smooth. This very thing had locked away my entire life in my previous existence and buried the entire Lu family. I gripped the marriage certificate tightly and headed straight for the door. "Miss the veil. You can't lift the veil yourself. It is bad luck." Xiao Tao chased after me, holding the veil. Auspicious, I turned back and smiled at her. "Xiao Tao, from today on. I don't believe in fate, and I certainly don't believe in auspiciousness. I only believe in myself." I clutched the marriage certificate and walked through the corridor draped with red silk. When the servants saw me lift the bridal veil myself and walk out, they were so shocked. Their eyes went wide, not daring to make a sound. The Buddhist hall wasn't far from the bridal chamber, secluded with an old locust tree in the courtyard. I walked to the entrance of the Buddhist hall, where dim candlelight flickered inside. On the window paper, 2 shadows were cast, pressed close together. The woman's silhouette was slender and delicate, nestled against the man's broad shoulders. The man's hand gently patted the woman's back. What a lovely scene of tender affection between lovers. I raised my foot and kicked the door hard. Bang! A loud crash. The wooden door slammed against the wall and bounced back. The candlelight flickered violently. The 2 people in the Buddhist hall jumped apart in shock. Huoju whipped his head around, his face still carrying lingering tenderness and pity. But when he saw it was me, it was instantly replaced by shock and anger. "Lu Sixi, have you lost your mind?" he shouted harshly. He wore bright red wedding robes, his figure tall and straight, with sharp brows and starry eyes, still the handsome figure that countless young ladies in the capital city dreamed of. But in my eyes, all that remained was a poisoned shell. Beside him stood Lu Shishi, dressed in a plain white gown, her slender waist barely a handful, face pale, eyes red and swollen like a frightened little rabbit. She was timidly clutching Huoju's sleeve at this moment, hiding behind him. Jugurju, her voice was soft and sweet, tinged with sobs. In my past life, I was fooled by this weak and pitiful appearance, tolerating again and again, yielding again and again. Sisters, this is the legendary green tea bitch in action, not staying in the bridal chamber on the wedding night, running off to the Buddhist hall to flirt and putting on that pitiful me. Look, this guy is something else too, wearing bright red wedding robes while meeting his first love. What kind of confusing behavior is this? If I were the female lead, I'd give them a bloodbath right on the spot. The general is in such high spirits. I spoke, my voice cold as ice. On our wedding night, you come to the Buddhist hall for a secret rendezvous with a beauty. What? Is this Buddhist hall more thrilling than the marriage bed? Or is it that I, your lawful wife, can't serve you as well as your cousin? You, veins bulged at Huoju's temples, clearly not expecting me to say such crude and blunt words. Liu Shishi was even more unsteady on her feet, tears instantly welling up, crying like a pear blossom in the rain. Sister Liu, you've misunderstood. I was just feeling upset and came to talk to my cousin. There is nothing between us. Nothing. Between us. Nothing. Nothing while hugging each other, nothing while hiding in this pitch-dark Buddhist hall, Liu Shishi. These tricks of yours might fool blind men, but don't use them to disgust me. Huoju stepped in front of Liu Shishi, staring at me with a gloomy gaze, Lu Sixi. Mind your place. Shishi has a weak constitution and can't withstand such slander and humiliation from you. Get back to your bridal chamber. Place. I laughed out loud, raising the bright red marriage certificate in my hand. General Hu still knows about place. Then what is this? I flung it hard, and the marriage certificate smacked right onto his face. The silk slid down, spreading open on the ground. This damn marriage certificate. I don't want it anymore. I stared into his shocked eyes, word by word, crystal clear. Huoju, let's divorce. The Buddhist hall fell into dead silence instantly. Only Liu Shishi's faint sobbing could be heard. Huoju seemed like he hadn't heard clearly, stunned for a moment. Then mockery and annoyance surfaced on his face. Divorce? He sneered, bending down to pick up the marriage certificate. Casually dusting it off, Lu Sixi, what kind of playing hard to get game are you pulling now? Marrying me, Huoju, was your Lu family reaching above your station. Now you've lifted your own veil and come here to make a scene, just to get my attention. He stepped forward, his tall figure exuding an oppressive aura. Let me tell you. Don't waste your efforts. I married you because I was following the imperial edict, giving your Lu family face. As for my heart, it will always belong to Shishi. Just be a proper general's wife, and I won't deny you the dignity you deserve. But if you dare throw another tantrum and hurt Shishi, don't blame me for being harsh. Such a familiar tone, such matter-of-fact arrogance. In my past life, I was intimidated by these very words, believing that as long as I was good enough, patient enough, I could eventually make him turn back to me. What I got instead was the destruction of my entire family. I let out a soft laugh, marrying above my station, being harsh. I raised my head and met his gaze without fear. Huoju, do you think you are worthy? You think I wanted to marry you, imperial edict face? I advanced toward him step by step, forcing him to unconsciously retreat half a step. If my father hadn't been so foolish, I wouldn't have spared you a second glance. Today's marriage isn't finalized yet. The bridal chamber wasn't entered. The rites weren't completed. I pointed at the marriage certificate on the ground. Now tear it up. Or tomorrow I'll go to the palace and beat the Dangwon drum, accusing you, General Hua, of defiling the Buddhist hall on your wedding night and humiliating your lawful wife. Let's see if His Majesty believes your devoted love. Or my tearful accusations as a daughter of the Liu family. Hoju's expression finally changed. He stared at me intently, as if looking at a stranger. The Liu Cixi before him had eyes sharp as blades. An imposing aura where was even half a shadow of the meek and timid person from the rumors. You are threatening me? His voice squeezed out through gritted teeth. Yes, I admitted frankly. Either we divorce, and you go your way while I go mine, or we both go down together. I, Liu Cixi, have a worthless life, and I am willing to risk everything to drag you, great General Hua. Off your high horse. I just don't know if your dear Shishi can afford to wait. Liu Shishi was so scared she even forgot to cry, clutching Hoju's arm tightly. Jujij. Don't, Shishi is scared. My reputation. Hoju's chest heaved violently, his eyes looking like he could devour someone, but he didn't dare make a move. I meant what I said. The Liu family hadn't fallen yet, and my father was still a minister. If this really went before the emperor, Huoju had just won a battle and was riding high, but he'd also made quite a few enemies. A scandal like this on his wedding night. The spittle from the censorate alone could drown him. Most importantly, it would completely ruin Liu Shishi. He couldn't afford to gamble. Good, very good. Huoju laughed in extreme anger, nodding repeatedly. Liu Cixi, I underestimated you. He violently tore the marriage certificate in half, then tore again, fragments fluttering down to the ground. As you wish, divorce. He practically roared it out. Take your dowry and get out of the general's manor immediately. From now on, you and I have nothing to do with each other. The general is straightforward. The huge weight in my heart finally crashed to the ground. What a relief I turned and left without a shred of reluctance. Liu Cixi, he called out to stop me from behind, his voice cold and sinister. You'll regret this without me, Huoju. Who else in the capital city do you think would dare to marry you? And how many more days can your Liu family stay proud? I didn't look back. That is none of General Hua's concern. Regret. My biggest regret was not seeing through you, you beast. Sooner in my past life. Leaving the Buddhist hall, the night wind blew and my back felt ice cold. Only then did I realize my inner garment was already soaked with cold sweat. Xiao Tao followed behind with a deathly pale face, her soul seemingly lost. Xiao Tao. I stopped in my tracks. Are you scared? Xiao Tao nodded. Then quickly shook her head. If Miss isn't scared, then this servant isn't scared either. Wherever Miss goes, this servant will follow. I smiled slightly. Don't worry, the sky won't fall. Go back and pack up, we're going home. By the time we returned to the Liu residence, it was already the latter half of the night. My father, Minister Liu, and my mother were startled awake. Seeing me run back in my wedding dress with carrying my dowry behind me, they were both stunned 60. What is this? My mother rushed over and grabbed me, looking me up and down, her voice trembling. Did that bastard Huoju bully you? My father's face was ashen. Outrageous. Marriage is a serious matter, not child's play. How dare you run back to your parents' home on your own, and you even dared to divorce? Where do you expect the Liu family to put our face? In my past life, my father cared too much about face and valued political marriages too highly, which step by step pushed the Liu family into the fire pit. Father, mother, I knelt down directly. Your daughter is unfilial, but Huoju is absolutely not a good match. On our wedding night, he had a secret meeting with our cousin Liu Shishi in the Buddhist hall, and I caught them. I would rather die than spend the rest of my life with someone who humiliates his wife like this. What? My mother screamed and nearly fainted. My father was also stunned and said angrily, Is this true? Absolutely true. All the servants at the general's manor saw it. I have already torn up the marriage certificate on the spot and divorced him. I raised my head, my gaze firm. Father, Huoju is ruthless and ambitious. He married me only to win you over. Once you have no more value to him, he will abandon the Liu family without hesitation, or even turn against us. Marrying into his family is a disaster. Not a blessing. My father was silent for a long time, then let out a heavy sigh. He had been through the ups and downs of officialdom for many years. He was no fool. He had also noticed Huoju's recent movements. Forget it, forget it. He waved his hand, saying wearily, "What is done, what else can we do? It is just that Sixi, your future Sai, father, your daughter has her own plans." I stood up. "Please trust your daughter this once." I knew that just divorcing him was far from enough. Huoju would not let me go, and even less would he let the Liu family go. I want him ruined. I want him in Lushishi to pay the price. But right now, I am too weak. I need power. I need a backer. A thought grew wildly in my heart. I remember in my previous life, Huoju's greatest political enemy in court was the Privy Councillor Mu Bohan. The two fought to the death over military power and political views. In the end, Huoju used underhanded methods to frame Mu Bohan for colluding with the enemy. Only then did he bring him down, and the entire Mu family was executed. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Mu Bohan might be my best choice. According to rumors, Mu Bohan has a cold personality, shows no interest in women, and uses ruthless methods and existence even more feared than Huoju. But I know Mu Bohan has a secret about his origins enough to overturn everything. This was something I accidentally overheard from Huoju's secret conversation with his confidant before I died in my previous life. This is my bargaining chip. A few days later, a palace banquet. I knew Huoju and Lushishi would both be there. I also knew Mu Bohan would definitely be there. I deliberately wore a plain dress, no makeup on my face, which only made my eyes look especially large, my complexion somewhat pale, the appearance of someone barely keeping up appearances, while actually heartbroken. Sure enough, the moment I entered the great hall, I felt all kinds of gazes, surprise, sympathy, disdain. Schadenfreude. Huoju sat at the front of the military officials' seats, and beside him was actually Lushishi, who had already changed to a married woman's hairstyle. She leaned against him like a little bird seeking shelter, her cheeks slightly flushed. Everyone whispered among themselves. Huoju was actually this impatient. It had only been a few days since the divorce, and he was already openly bringing his new lover to the palace banquet. Huoju saw me, his gaze sinister, carrying a warning. Lushishi cast a smug and provocative glance my way. I lowered my eyes, pretending not to see, and quietly walked to an inconspicuous corner among the women's seats. Halfway through the palace banquet, I slipped away from my seat when no one was paying attention. Following my memory, I walked to a secluded waterside corridor on the west side of the Imperial Garden. Mu Bohan was indeed there. He stood alone by the railing, gazing at the pitch-black lake surface. Clad in a dark purple official robe, his figure appeared tall and slender, his profile sharp and cold, exuding an aura that kept strangers at bay. I took a deep breath and walked over Lord Mu. I spoke softly. Mu Bohan turned around, seeing it was me. A faint trace of surprise flickered in his eyes before quickly returning to indifference. "Miss Liu, what brings you here?" "I want to make a deal with Lord Mu." I cut straight to the chase. "A deal." His eyebrow raised slightly. Seemingly mocking, Miss Liu can barely protect herself now. "What capital do you have to deal with me?" "I have Huoju's secret." I lifted my head, looking straight into his deep eyes, a secret enough to doom him beyond redemption. Mu Bohan's gaze finally showed a ripple of emotion. He sized me up, his gaze sharp as if trying to see through my skin. "Let's hear it. Lord Mu, first agree to cooperate with me." I didn't back down. "Why should I trust you?" I stepped forward, lowered my voice, and quickly said a sentence in a volume. Only the two of us could hear, a sentence about clues to his true origins. Mu Bohan's pupils contracted sharply. His always calm and unruffled face instantly cracked, revealing terrifying turbulent waves. He suddenly struck out, grabbing my neck with one hand and pinning me against the corridor pillar. "Who are you? How did you find out?" His voice was pressed extremely low, yet carried a terrifying, killing intent. I couldn't breathe, but I didn't struggle, just looked at him and said with difficulty, "I am someone who can help you, and also someone who can make Huoju die without a burial place." His hand tightened, and my vision began to go black. Just when I thought he was going to strangle me to death, he suddenly let go. I slid to the ground, coughing violently. He looked down at me from above, his gaze incredibly complex, murderous intent, scrutiny, and a barely perceptible tremor. "How do you want to cooperate?" he asked, his voice returning to its icy tone, but I knew he was wavering. "Marry me." I rasped out 2 words. Mubohan froze. "What did you say?" "Marry me." I held onto the pillar and stood up resolute and decisive. "A proper marriage with formal rights. I need the identity of Madame Mu to protect myself, and I need your power to deal with Huoju. In return, I will help you find solid evidence to prove your lineage, and help you completely bring down Huoju. You know, Huoju hates me to the bone right now. Marrying me would be the greatest humiliation and blow to him," I added. "Moreover, I have a way to make him personally deliver the fatal leverage into your hands." Mubohan fell silent. His back was to the light, so I couldn't see his expression. Time passed bit by bit. Just when I was about to give up, he spoke. "Lu Sixi, you are very bold. But this deal, I'll take it. In 3 days, I will send someone to the Lu residence to propose marriage." After saying that, he didn't look at me again, turned and left, disappearing at the end of the corridor. My legs went weak, and I nearly fell again, leaning against the pillar, gasping for breath. Another layer of cold sweat covered my back. I won the gamble. My marriage to Mubohan shocked the entire capital city, even more jaw-dropping than my divorce from Huoju. Who didn't know that Mubohan and Huoju were sworn enemies? Who didn't know that Lu Sixi was the cast-off wife that Huoju didn't want? Mubohan was actually going to marry her, and as his legal wife, this was practically grinding Huoju's face into the dirt. Proposal, betrothal gifts, name inquiry, auspicious date selection. The process moved incredibly fast. Mubohan seemed completely indifferent to worldly opinions, acting swiftly and decisively. Huoju indeed couldn't sit still anymore. The day before the wedding, he actually sent someone to climb over the wall in the middle of the night to deliver me a letter. There was only one line on the letter. The handwriting fierce, "Lu Sixi, do you really want to humiliate me like this, marrying that eunuch faction's lapdog? You'll regret this." Eunuch faction's lapdog, right? Mu Basian had a deep connection with a certain grand eunuch in the palace, which was Huoju's main excuse for attacking him. I burned the letter regret. I am waiting to see you filled with regret. Huoju on the day of the grand wedding. The Mu residence was decorated with lanterns and colorful banners. Guests gathered like clouds. Compared to the anxiety I felt when I married Huoju last time, this time, there was only an icy calm in my heart. The bridal sedan landed, and a hand with distinct knuckles reached inside. It was Mubohan's hand. I placed my hand on it, and he held it firmly, leading me out of the sedan door. His hand was cold but strong. Through the veil, I could feel countless gazes, and I could also feel one particularly venomous and cold stare, fixed firmly on me. No need to look. It was Huoju. He really came, bow to heaven and earth, bow to the parents, bow to each other as husband and wife. The ceremonial official shouted loudly, "The ceremony is complete, escort them to the bridal chamber." I was ushered toward the bridal chamber surrounded by the crowd. When passing by Huoju, my steps faltered slightly. Mubohan seemed to notice, and his grip on my hand tightened. Inside the bridal chamber, red candles burned bright. I sat by the bed, waiting this time. I didn't wait long. Footsteps sounded, and Mubohan lifted the bridal veil. He was still wearing the bright red wedding attire, his face expressionless, his eyes unfathomably deep. The nuptial wine was already prepared. We each picked up a cup, arms intertwined, very close. I could smell the cool, crisp scent of pine and cypress on him. Just as the cup was about to touch my lips, bang. The door to the bridal chamber was kicked open. Huoju reeked of alcohol, his eyes bloodshot, barging in like a crazed beast. Oh my god, how shameless can this Huoju be? She is already married, and he still comes to crash the wedding night. What kind of domineering CEO novel scene is this? Bro, is your first love Lu Sixi not good enough anymore? Or did you suddenly realize you actually love the female lead? I am so done with this manipulation. Lu Sixi, you are ruthless. He glared at me intensely, then suddenly turned to Mubohan, gnashing his teeth. Mubohan, how dare you marry her? You knew full well she is your what? Mubohan set down his cup, slowly rising to stand in front of me. His voice calm and steady, General Ho. Today is my wedding day. If you've come to offer congratulations, I welcome you. But if you've come to cause trouble, his tone turned cold. Don't blame me for being impolite. Not welcome, Huo, Ju laughed wildly, pointing at my nose. Mu Bohan, you think you picked up a treasure. This woman is nothing but trouble. She can marry you today to get revenge on me, and tomorrow she can stab you in the back for something else. That is my business. Mu Bohan didn't yield an inch. General Huo, please leave. Huoju's chest heaved violently, his eyes looking like he wanted to tear us apart alive. He stared at me intensely, his gaze filled with anger, unwillingness, and a hint of panic that even he himself hadn't noticed. Lu Sixi, his voice was hoarse. What exactly do you want? Come back. I can let you come back, equal wife. You and Shishi will be equals. I laughed, gently pushing Mu Bohan aside. I stepped forward, picking up that cup of untouched nuptial wine. I slowly took a sip. The wine was harsh, burning all the way to my heart. General Hua. I looked at him, my smile radiant, but the words I spoke were like ice picks, not as ruthless as how you deceived me and slaughtered my entire Lu family in the previous life. Huoju's whole body shook violently. As if struck by lightning, his face instantly turned pale as paper, pupils dilated. Filled with disbelief and horror, what did you say? His voice trembled, staggering back a step. What previous life? Lu Sixi, have you gone mad? Whether I am crazy or not, the general knows best. I set down the wine cup, took Mu Bohan's arm, and leaned against him. My posture was intimate, but my tone was ice cold. Please leave, General. Don't delay me and my husband drinking the nuptial wine. Oh, right, I said as if suddenly remembering, adding, Miss Lu Shishi, has she been feeling heart palpitations and shortness of breath lately, with mysterious red spots appearing on her body? I'd advise the general to find a better doctor to take a look. Wouldn't want it to be some shameful disease. Huoju was struck as if by a heavy blow, the color draining completely from his face. Lu Shishi had indeed been feeling unwell lately. She had secretly consulted several doctors, but none could explain it. Only saying she was weak, he thought it was because she was overthinking. How could Lu Sixi know? Could she? A terrifying, almost absurd thought uncontrollably surged into Huoju's mind, combined with her words about the previous life. Huoju suddenly looked at me, his eyes filled with terror. As if he were looking at a vengeful ghost that had crawled back from hell number impossible, he murmured, his soul shattered. See the guest out, Mu Bohan ordered coldly. 2 guards immediately stepped forward and escorted the dumbstruck Huoju out. Brooking no resistance, the bridal chamber returned to silence. The red candle crackled, bursting into a flower of light. Mu Bohan turned around, his deep gaze falling on my face, filled with inquiry and scrutiny. Previous life. He spoke slowly, slaughtered your entire family. I knew he had heard what I just said, and he was suspicious now, but I didn't plan to reveal everything right now. Lord Mu, I met his gaze. Some things, if known too early, will only bring harm. You only need to know that Huoju is our common enemy, and I have a way to make him bring about his own destruction. What I said just now about Lu Shishi's illness is true, I added. It is not an illness, it is poison. A chronic exotic poison from the southern frontier, with a long incubation period that slowly weakens a person until death. Mu Bohan's eyes narrowed. You did it. Yes. I admitted frankly, I accidentally knocked it into her rouge box. The dose was very light, she won't die anytime soon, but she'll be bedridden, her beauty gradually fading. Huoju loves her so much, he'll definitely try everything to save her. I curled my lips. An exotic poison from the southern frontier naturally requires an antidote from the southern frontier, and that so-called antidote is itself another more potent poison, with ingredients extremely similar to a certain contraband military material from the borderlands. Mu Bohan understood immediately. Smuggling military supplies. Colluding with the southern frontier. He said slowly, a capital offense exactly. I nodded. Ju is desperate to save her. He'll definitely use his secret channels to obtain the antidote. And that secret channel, Lord Mu, isn't that exactly what you've been investigating but couldn't find evidence for? Mu Bohan looked at me, silent for a long time. The candlelight flickered in his eyes. Lu Sixi, he finally spoke, his voice devoid of emotion. You are more terrifying than I imagined. Terrifying? I smiled with a hint of desolation. I am just someone who has died once and knows how to make my enemies suffer more than I did back then. Lord Mu, our deal officially takes effect from this moment. A pleasure doing business. I raised the nuptial wine cup once again. Mubohan was silent for a moment, then raised his cup as well. Our arms intertwined once more. The cups clinked together with a crisp sound. We drained the wine in one gulp. After Huju was escorted out of the bridal chamber, that dazed, like he'd seen a ghost look on his face, filled me with a surge of satisfaction. But this wasn't enough, far from enough. The nuptial wine finished, only a bitter aftertaste remained in my mouth. Mubohan set down his cup, his gaze toward me still complex and unreadable, like an ancient well too deep to see the bottom. What you just said, I'll have people look into it. His voice was flat, as if discussing official business. If it is as you say. Hoju's channel for smuggling military supplies could indeed be a breakthrough. Not a breakthrough, I corrected him. It is the guillotine that'll send him to the chopping block. Mubohan neither agreed nor disagreed, only said indifferently, "You seem very certain." Because I understand him, I walked to the vanity and began removing the remaining hair ornaments from my head. His feelings for Lushishi are genuine. Genuine feelings are his greatest weakness. To save her, he'd dare to do anything. In the bronze mirror, I could see Mubohan's figure standing behind me. He didn't move or speak, just quietly watched me take off the hairpins and rings. The atmosphere was somewhat subtle. After all, this was our wedding night in name. Lord Mu, I paused my movements and looked at him through the mirror. Our deal doesn't include sharing a bed. Tonight, I'll just sleep on the couch. I spoke directly. When dealing with someone like him, beating around the bush was useless. Mubohan seemed stunned for a moment, then the corner of his mouth twitched almost imperceptibly, like a cold smile or perhaps something else. As you wish. He turned and walked toward the writing desk on the other side of the room. I am used to staying up late. He actually sat down, picked up a scroll, and began reading, leaving me aside. I breathed a sigh of relief, yet vaguely felt something was off. This man was far too composed. I changed into sleepwear and lay down fully clothed on the soft couch by the window. The glow of the red candles flickered, stretching his silhouette long against the wall. The room was so quiet you could hear each other's breathing. I closed my eyes, but had no desire to sleep. My mind was filled with Huoju's terrified face from just now. He believed it. He believed at least 70 or 80% of it. The accusation about the previous life was too absurd, but precisely because of its absurdity, combined with the fact that Lushishi was inexplicably poisoned, it threw him into complete disarray. Very good. The first step, disrupting his mind, has already succeeded. Next, I just need to wait for him to panic and touch that deadly smuggling line. As for me, I can't just rely on Mubohan. I need to make my own moves. The Lu family must break away from the center of the storm that Huoju might stir up as soon as possible. As for father, I need to find a way to make him see the situation clearly, either retreat while he still can, or completely side with Mubohan. And then there is Lushishi. Is she really just Huoju's first love? That simple. In my previous life, I died early. So I don't know what happened between Huoju and Lushishi afterward, but I've experienced the scheming beneath Lushishi's delicate facade all too well. Her reaction after being poisoned will be a variable. I need to keep a close eye on her. As I kept thinking, my consciousness gradually blurred. Since my rebirth, my nerves had been constantly on edge. Now, lying in the relatively safe, at least temporarily safe, Mu residence, exhaustion washed over me like a tide. In that state between sleep and wakefulness, I seemed to hear a very faint sound. I snapped my eyes open. Mubohan was still sitting behind the desk, his posture barely changed, now reading a different booklet in his hands. Under the candlelight, his brows were lowered, and the lines of his profile appeared, especially cold and sharp where light met shadow. As if that sound just now was my imagination, I closed my eyes again. That night, I somehow drifted off into a hazy sleep until dawn. The next day, according to custom, I had to serve tea to the elders of the Mu family. Mubohan's parents died early, and the only person in the mansion was an elderly madam who spent her days worshipping Buddha and didn't concern herself with household affairs. She was his grandmother. The old lady had a full head of silver hair, yet her eyes were still bright and clear. She took my tea, simply said in a flat tone, "Now that you've entered this household, live your days well," bestowed a pair of jade bracelets of ordinary quality, then waved her hand for us to withdraw. Her attitude was distant, but at least she didn't make things difficult. After leaving the old madam's courtyard, Mubohan said, I have official business, go back to your room yourself. You can walk around the residence freely, but don't go near the study on the west side or the small training ground on the east side without permission. Got it, I nodded. He glanced at me, seemingly wanting to say something, but in the end just turned and left. His back was straight, yet exuded a cold aloofness that kept people at a distance. I returned to the courtyard where the bridal chamber was located. Xiao Tao was already waiting there, her eyes red as if she had been crying. Miss, she came up to me, lowering her voice. Last night, the young master, it is fine. I patted her hand. We each got what we needed. This is better. Xiao Tao seemed to half understand, but seeing my calm expression, she felt a bit more at ease. What about the matter I asked you to look into? I asked. Xiao Tao leaned in closer, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. I found out on Lu Shishi's side. They secretly summoned an imperial physician in the middle of the night yesterday. General Hua went to fetch him personally. It was very quiet, but our people stationed outside the general's manor saw it. When the imperial physician came out, his expression was very grim. Early this morning, General Hua sent several groups of people out of the city, all heading south. I nodded. The fish was starting to bite. Tell our people to be careful, don't follow too closely, just figure out the general direction, and absolutely don't get exposed. I instructed, also send word to my father, tell him I miss him and will visit home tomorrow. Yes, miss, the home visit was fake. Communicating with my father was the real purpose. Huoju was definitely watching the Liu family now. I couldn't contact them frequently, but a home visit was proper etiquette. He couldn't stop that. The next day, I brought the return gifts Mu Bohan had prepared, not lavish, but nothing to fault, and went back to the Liu manor. Mu Bohan didn't accompany me, only saying he was busy with official duties. Perfect. As soon as I entered the Liu manor, my mother grabbed me and looked me up and down, tears streaming down her face. My child has suffered. That Mu Bohan, does he treat you well? Has he... Mother, I am fine. I cut her off and looked at my father. Father, I have something important to tell you. After dismissing everyone, only the two of us, father and daughter, remained in the study. My father furrowed his brow. Sixi, marrying Mu Bohan is far too risky. What kind of person is he? He devours people without spitting out the bones. Even if Huaju has 1,000 faults, you shouldn't have been so impulsive. Getting caught up in the struggle between those two. Father, do you think I could have avoided this by not marrying? I countered. Huoju hates me for publicly humiliating him, and hates me even more for defecting to his mortal enemy. He won't let the Liu family off rather than sit and wait for death. It is better to actively seek protection, or even strike back. Strike back. What do you have to strike back with? My father was both anxious and angry. Huoju's weak point. I lowered my voice and briefly explained my speculation about Lu Shishi's poisoning and Huoju's possible smuggling of military supplies. Of course, I omitted the parts about me poisoning her and my rebirth, only saying that by chance I learned Lu Shishi had contracted a strange illness and that Huoju had some shady dealings in the southern frontier. After listening, my father's expression changed several times and he paced around the study for quite a while. This matter, how confident are you? 70%. I paused. Father. You've also been an official at court for many years. In the past year, Huoju has achieved outstanding military merits and risen through the ranks extremely fast. Where does the money for all his extra expenses and the people he secretly recruits come from? Military pay and rewards alone are definitely not enough. The southern frontier border is unstable, and smuggling profits are astonishing. There is no way he is not involved. My father fell silent. He knew what I said was the truth. What do you want me to do? 2 things. I held up 2 fingers first. Find a way to let a few upright officials from the censorate accidentally learn that Huoju's sweetheart has been afflicted with a strange poison, possibly related to something from the southern frontier. No need to say much, just hint at it and let them make their own connections and investigate. Second, Father. Do you have any old records about the abnormal armor losses from the Ministry of War before the new year? Or perhaps some old clerks in the Ministry of War who are at odds with Huoju? My father suddenly looked at me, his gaze sharp. You want to dig up old cases? Not digging up old cases, looking for clues. I said calmly, Huoju is cautious in his dealings, his current smuggling channels must be well hidden. But what about before? When he was just rising to power, he might not have been so careful. Those seemingly unrelated old cases from years past might just piece together one of his hidden connections. As long as we find one loose thread, Mubohan will naturally have ways to follow it to the source. My father looked at me for a long time, then let out a long sigh. "Sixy, you've changed, father. Everyone changes." I lowered my eyes, especially after dying once. My father's body trembled, but in the end he said nothing more. "I'll keep an eye out," he finally said. "You, be careful in the Mu residence. Mubohan is unfathomable. Don't trust him completely. Your daughter understands." Leaving the Lu residence, I felt somewhat more at ease. Although my father is conservative, he is not foolish. With a direction, he'll know what to do. The next few days passed without incident. Mubo, he did keep his deal promise, giving me the title of Madam Mu and relative freedom, yet also kept me isolated from his world. That is fine too. I am happy to have peace and quiet, perfect for making arrangements in secret. News kept coming from Xiao Tao's side. Of the people Halju sent to the south, 2 groups lost their traces, clearly using extraordinary means to conceal their whereabouts, but another group didn't seem to be going smoothly, being interrogated for a long time at a checkpoint near the border, which delayed their time. Lushishi's illness is said to be getting worse and worse, and she is already bedridden. Huo Ju is so anxious that he has got blisters at the corners of his mouth, his temper growing increasingly irritable. He has clashed head-on with Mubohan several times in court, the tension so thick that even the emperor spoke up to reprimand them. The timing is slowly ripening. This evening, Mubohan suddenly returned to the manor and came directly to my courtyard. His expression was somewhat gloomy, carrying the chill from outside on him. "Pack up, you are coming with me to the palace tonight." He was brief and to the point. "Enter the palace." I was surprised. The mid-autumn palace banquet. All officials bring their families. He glanced at me. "You are Madam Mu. You should attend." I understood. This wasn't just a simple palace banquet. This was a show for the emperor to see, for all the officials to see. And even more so, a show for Huaju to see all right. I didn't ask more. "I'll go prepare now." The palace banquet was as extravagant and lively as always. My appearance together with Mubohan indeed attracted quite a few gazes. Especially Huajuhi sat across from us. His eyes, like poison-dipped daggers, fixed dead on me. The seat beside him was empty. Lushishi was indeed too ill to attend. Mubohan acted as if he didn't notice, speaking to me in a low voice with a composed expression, occasionally picking up food for me with his chopsticks. The gestures weren't exactly intimate, yet they carried a natural familiarity that belonged between husband and wife. I knew he was putting on an act, so I played along by lowering my eyes, showing just the right amount of obedience. The wine cup in Huoju's hand was almost crushed. After a few rounds of drinks, the atmosphere was at its peak. Suddenly, a eunuch hurried in and whispered a few words in the emperor's ear. The emperor's smile faded slightly, his gaze sweeping over Huaju as if by chance, then passing over Mubohan. "Minister Huao," the emperor spoke. Huaju immediately stood up. "Your subject is here. I have heard that your betrothed concubine, Lady Liu, has fallen gravely ill. Is this true?" Emperor's tone was flat, revealing neither pleasure nor anger. Huaju's face turned pale. He bowed and said, "Replying to your majesty, Shishi, she is indeed unwell. Having caught a cold, she will recover after resting for some time. I am grateful for your majesty's concern." "Oh, a cold?" The emperor dragged out the tone. "How come I heard? It sounds more like an illness from not adapting to the climate from the south. Has Minister Huo had any dealings with the south recently?" The moment these words were spoken, the entire hall fell silent instantly. You could hear a pin drop. Huju fell to his knees with a thud, cold sweat instantly beading on his forehead. "Your Majesty, please see clearly. This subject is utterly loyal to your Majesty." Without any second thoughts, Shishi's illness is truly an old ailment, completely unrelated to the south. I have indeed sent people to the south recently to find some rare medicinal herbs solely to treat Shishi, with no other intentions. Heaven and earth can bear witness to my sincerity. He panicked. The emperor's casual remark was more terrifying than any accusation. Rare medicinal herbs. The emperor smiled slightly. My dear minister is quite devoted and loyal. Rise. I was merely asking casually. Huoju stood up trembling, the clothes on his back already soaked through. He instinctively looked toward Mubohan. Mubohan was leisurely peeling a grape as if everything just now had nothing to do with him. But I knew that the wind from the censorate had already reached the emperor's ears, and the emperor's casual question just now seemed more like a warning or a test. Huoju, you've already entered the emperor's sight during the second half of the palace banquet. Huoju sat as if on pins and needles, his mind elsewhere. When the banquet ended, Mubohan and I walked out side by side. Passing by Huoju, my steps paused slightly, and in a voice only the three of us could hear, I said softly, General, the antidote from the southern frontier isn't easy to find, is it? Be careful. You might get burned playing with fire. Huoju suddenly raised his head, his eyes bloodshot, churning with shock, rage, fear, and a hint of despair. He wanted to say something, but Mubohan had already wrapped his arm around my shoulder and led me away. His hand gripped my shoulder, the force not light. Only after we got on the carriage did he let go. The light inside the carriage was dim. You were too hasty. His voice betrayed no emotion. Adding fuel to the fire makes it burn brighter. I said calmly, the more panicked he is, the more mistakes he'll make. Mubohan said nothing more. The carriage rumbled forward. After a while, he suddenly asked, the poison Lushishi was afflicted with, is there really no cure? My heart skipped a beat, but my expression remained unchanged. Why does Lord Mew ask about this? Curious. He turned his head. In the darkness, his eyes appeared particularly deep. For you to be so certain using this to set up a trap, that poison must be quite extraordinary. It is indeed extraordinary. I met his gaze, but it is not without a cure. It is just that the formula for the true antidote was lost long ago. What Huoju can find is only a substitute, and the substitute is itself a deadly poison. Mubohan was silent for a moment. Do you hate Lushishi? Yes, I answered without hesitation. What she owes me is more than just one life, just because of Huoju. I didn't answer. Some things cannot be said. The carriage stopped in front of the Mew residence. Mubohan got off first, then, unexpectedly, extended his hand to me. I was stunned for a moment, then placed my hand in his. He helped me out of the carriage. His movements could be called considerate. But I knew if you are putting on an act, you have to go all the way. Outside the manor gates, there might be eyes belonging to Huoju or others. We entered the manor together like a real married couple. His hand seemed a bit warmer than the last time he held mine. Huoju indeed became more anxious. Late one night, a few days later, Xiao Tao brought crucial news. Miss our people discovered that one of General Hu's trusted aides leading a small squad, escorting several cargo wagons disguised as a merchant caravan, returned from the south overnight. They didn't take the main road, but the abandoned hunting trail through West Mountain. The goods were tightly covered with oilcloth, but when they moved them, there was a heavy sound of metal clashing. The West Mountain hunting trail, it was used for royal hunts years ago, later abandoned. The terrain is secluded, but the path is rough normally, no one uses it. Where did they go? My heart raced. They went into an abandoned iron mine on the west side of the city. Xiao Tao's eyes lit up. That mine was sealed off long ago, but there seems to be a large underground warehouse below. After they went in, many people were left guarding outside. Our people didn't dare get too close. An iron mine, an underground warehouse. This is definitely one of Huoju's hideouts for smuggled military supplies. Tell the people watching to pull back further. Absolutely do not expose themselves. I suppress my excitement. Also, find a way to leak this information without leaving any trace to the guard captain named Yanxing under Lord Mew. Yanxing was Mubohan's trusted aide, specializing in investigation and apprehension. Xiao Tao nodded vigorously. Understood. After the message was sent out, there was no movement from Mubohan's side for 2 consecutive days. I knew he was verifying, setting up his net. To move against Huoju, he had to strike with certainty, leaving no chance for counterattack. On the 3rd night, Mubohan returned very late and came straight to my courtyard. There were faint dark circles under his eyes, but his spirits were high, his gaze sharp as an unsheathed sword. The information is accurate. He was brief and to the point. There is indeed a large warehouse beneath the mine, storing a batch of standard-issue swords and crossbows, as well as several rare metals unique to the southern frontier. Security is tight, but not impenetrable. What do you plan to do? I asked. Wait. He uttered 2 words. Wait for his next transaction. Catch him red-handed. He'll make another transaction. Lushishi's illness can't wait. Mubohan sneered coldly. The antidote he brought back was either insufficient in quantity or ineffective. He'll make another move soon, and this time to save her life. He might use more core channels and trade more sensitive goods. Sure enough, in less than 5 days, Xiao Tao brought news again. Huoju's trusted men had secretly left the city again, this time with more people and seemingly accompanied by experts. After receiving the news, Mubohan immediately left the residence and didn't return all night. I knew the time to close the net had come. That night, I had no desire to sleep, sitting by the window, watching the deep darkness outside. There was no wild joy of great revenge fulfilled in my heart, only an icy calm, and a faint trace of unease. Cold things have gone too smoothly. Lushishi's side had been abnormally quiet, with her scheming mind and Huoju's regard for her. Had she really not noticed anything suspicious about her poisoning? And Mubohan, did he agree to this deal really just to bring down Huoju and investigate his own origins? What exactly was he plotting? As dawn approached, hurried footsteps and suppressed commotion came from the front courtyard. I shot to my feet. Xiao Tao stumbled in, her face pale as a sheet, her voice trembling. Miss, something happened. The young master, Lord Mu, what happened to him? My heart clenched. Lord Mu led men to set an ambush on the West Mountain hunting trail last night. Intercepted General Hu's smuggling convoy, caught them red-handed with the evidence. But on the way back to the city they were ambushed. The attackers were numerous and ruthless, like they were trying to silence them. Lord Mu is injured. Mubohan was injured. How serious is it? Where is he now? I asked urgently. He is already back at the manor, in the study. The imperial physician just arrived. Xiao Tao was incoherent outside. Outside we're surrounded by the patrol battalion. The deputy commander leading them says he is acting on General Huo's orders. Someone reported that the Mu Manor is harboring rebels. They want to come in and search. This plot twist is making my head spin. Huoju is really acting like a cornered dog, isn't he? He clearly got caught smuggling. Yet he is turning around and accusing others of harboring rebels. I am truly impressed by this move, but this setup where Mubohan is injured, doesn't it feel like it is just for the plot to make the female lead feel sorry for him? Huoju, how dare he act so desperately. Directly deploying the patrol camp to surround and search the residence, he is trying to take advantage of Mubohan's injury to forcibly pin charges on him, or even silence him permanently. Where is the master? Any news from the Lu residence? I force myself to calm down. The master just secretly sent word in, saying Huoju made counter-accusations at court, claiming Lord Mu colluded with the southern frontier, framed loyal officials, and plundered merchant caravans. He even produced so-called witnesses. His Majesty has already ordered the Court of Judicial Review to investigate this case together with Huoju. He told Miss to be extremely careful. What a way to twist the truth. Huoju is making a desperate gamble. I took a deep breath. Xiao Tao helped me change, do my hair and makeup, according to rank. Wear the most formal set of noble ladies' attire. Miss, what are you going to do? To meet that vice commander of the patrol camp. I walked to the vanity, looking at my pale face in the mirror. Mubohan can't move right now, so I'll step up. But it is too dangerous. What if they forced their way in? They wouldn't dare. I picked up the rouge and pressed it firmly onto my lips to make my complexion look rosier. Without an imperial edict, barging into a first-rank official's residence without permission means death on sight. The order Huoju gave them is at most to surround and pressure us, to test our strength. If they really dare to force their way in, the first to die will be this deputy general. Fully dressed, I brought Xiao Tao and several Mu residence guards and headed straight to the main gate. Dawn had broken. The Mu residence gates were tightly shut. Outside stood a dense formation of patrol camp soldiers, their blades and armor gleaming. The leader was a dark-skinned deputy general. Seeing me come out, he paused for a moment, then cupped his fists. His tone was fairly polite, but carried firmness. This humble general greets Madame Mew. By General Hu's orders, we are searching for rebels. Please be so kind as to open the gates, madam. I stood on the steps looking down at him from above. Rebels? What rebels? Does the general have an imperial edict? The deputy general faltered. This case is urgent. General Hu has already reported to His Majesty, so that means there is no imperial edict. I cut him off, raising my voice to ensure the onlookers outside could hear. Without an imperial edict, who gave you the gall to bring soldiers to surround the residence of the current Privy Council minister? According to our dynasty's laws, barging into a first-rank official's residence without an edict is tantamount to treason and can be executed on the spot. Deputy General, would you like to try? Behind me, the Mew residence guards drew their sabers with a sharp swish, their gazes cold and fierce. The Deputy General's expression changed, and the soldiers behind him also stirred restlessly. Madam Mew, I am also just following orders. Whose orders? Hoojers. I sneered. General Hu's own dealings with the southern frontier and smuggling military supplies have been exposed, so now he is trying to frame others and silence witnesses. Last night on the West Mountain hunting trail, he sent men to ambush Lord Mew, killing people and seizing evidence. Does he really think he can cover the sky with one hand? You are spouting nonsense. The Deputy General panicked. It was clearly Mew Bohan who robbed the caravan and framed a loyal official. Caravan. I stepped forward, staring him down. What kind of caravan needs to travel an abandoned hunting trail in the middle of the night? What kind of caravan carries standard military weapons and southern frontier contraband metals? Deputy General, you know perfectly well what benefits did Huoju promise you to make you dare wade into these muddy waters. Let me tell you, Lord Mew has already secretly transferred the seized contraband and captured criminals from last night to the Palace Command, under His Majesty's trusted men. His Majesty has long been aware of Huoju's crimes. Are you surrounding this place now, just waiting to be buried alongside Huoju? I was completely bluffing him. Whether the Palace Command was involved, I had no idea at all, but I spoke with absolute certainty, my momentum overwhelming. The Deputy General's eyes flickered, clearly panicking. The orders he received were to surround the Mew residence, create pressure, and coordinate with the impeachment at court. Huoju hadn't told him the specifics of what happened at West Mountain, let alone that the contraband might no longer be in Mew Bohan's hands. If His Majesty really found out, if Mew Bohan really was prepared, stand down at once. I shouted sternly, if you disturb Lord Mew, who is recovering from his injuries in the mansion, and delay His Majesty's investigation, how many heads do you have to spare? The Deputy General's forehead broke out in sweat. After much hesitation, he finally gritted his teeth and waved his hand. Withdraw first. The patrol camp soldiers retreated like a receding tide. I stood at the doorway until they disappeared around the street corner, then slowly let out a turbid breath. My legs feeling a bit weak, Xiao Tao hurriedly supported me. Miss, you were amazing. Return to the mansion, I said in a low voice, turning to walk back. Just as I walked through the second gate, I saw Yanqing striding over to greet me. He cupped his fists in salute, his expression much more respectful. Madam, the Lord is awake and requests your presence. The study was filled with a faint smell of blood and medicine. Mew Bohan was half reclined on the couch, his face pale, his left shoulder wrapped in thick bandages with blood faintly seeping through. But his eyes were startlingly bright. I heard about what happened at the gate just now. He looked at me, his tone somewhat complicated. Well done, how are your injuries? I asked. Won't kill me, he tugged at the corner of his mouth, seemingly wanting to smile, but it pulled at his wound and he frowned. Flesh wound. The arrow was poisoned, but not deep. The imperial physician has already treated it. He gestured to Yanqing. Yanqing immediately presented a wooden box and opened it. Inside were several secret letters and a black dark iron token, found on the ambushers. Mew Bohan said, the token is a dispatch order from the Palace Directorate of Ceremonies. The secret letter instructs them to make sure I disappear at West Mountain, the Directorate of Ceremonies. My heart shook violently. That is no ordinary eunuch office. It is an institution directly under the Emperor, managing palace affairs, and even has certain supervisory powers. Huoju's reach actually extended to the Directorate of Ceremonies. How could Huaju possibly mobilize people from the Directorate of Ceremonies? I couldn't believe it. Of course he can't. Mubohan's gaze was ice cold, but someone can. Moreover, this person doesn't want to see either me or Huaju become too powerful alone, and even less wants to see either of us truly bring the case of smuggling military supplies and colluding with the southern frontier before His Majesty. It would implicate too many. I understood there is a third force in the court. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Huaju and Mubohan fighting until both sides are devastated. That is the outcome certain people most want to see. So, the people who ambushed you last night weren't entirely sent by Huaju. There were also people to silence you. My voice went dry. Mubohan nodded. Huaju wanted to snatch back the stolen goods and kill me to silence me. The other side wanted to erase both the stolen goods and the person together, turning this case into a complete mess with no answers. How ruthless. So what now? What about the stolen goods? Did you really hand them over to the palace guard? I asked. Number Mubohan shook his head. I sent people disguised as a merchant caravan, carrying fake stolen goods to lure away some of the pursuers. The real stolen goods and key criminals are hidden in another absolutely safe place. As for the palace front command, he looked at me. Those words you just said will soon reach the ears of those who should hear them. Make the false seem real, and the real seem false. Let them guess. He was indeed shrewd and calculating. What about Huaju? He is finished. Mubohan's tone was certain. Smuggling military supplies, the evidence is irrefutable. Ambushing important court officials, attempting to seize stolen goods and silence witnesses, that is an even greater crime. The token and secret letter from the Directorate of Ceremonial, although they can't directly point to the mastermind behind this, are enough to make His Majesty want Huaju dead, and will also make the person behind the scenes not dare to act again for now. Now all that is missing is one final spark. What spark? Mubohan looked at me and said slowly, Lushishi. I was stunned. Huaju took desperate risks and frequently used smuggling channels just to save her. Lushishi is a key witness. Moreover, the poison in her body was administered by you. If she can speak up and testify that Huaju smuggled contraband just to find an antidote for her. She won't testify against Huaju. I said immediately, she loves Huaju, and she is so smart. She knows that even if she testifies against Huaju, she won't survive and might even die faster. What if she knew she was dying and Huaju was already too busy saving himself to save her? Muboxen's eyes were deep. What if she knew who poisoned her, and that person could give her the real antidote? I suddenly looked at him. What do you mean? I've investigated Lushishi's background. Muboxen gestured for Yanqing to bring out another file. She is not an ordinary orphan. Her mother came from a now-extinct tribe in the southern frontier, skilled in using poisons. Lushishi herself also knows some. She should have realized long ago that she was poisoned, and most likely guessed that the one who poisoned her was you. A chill ran down my spine, but she never said anything, instead playing along as her condition worsened, making Huaju more and more anxious. I murmured. She was using Huaju's feelings for her to force him to keep taking risks. Why? Because of hatred. Muboxen said calmly, hatred for the Hu family's refusal to save her mother back then, hatred for Huaju, who clearly loved her yet married you due to family pressure, and even more hatred for her own inescapable fate. She wanted to destroy Huaju, destroy the Hu family. I was too shocked to speak, Lushishi. She hid herself far deeper than I ever imagined, so she will be our final witness. Muboxen said, Yanqing has already sent people to pick her up, before she dies of illness. I suddenly felt cold all over. All of this seemed to have been within Muboxen's calculations all along. Huaju and I, Lushishi, even that third party behind the scenes, were all like pieces on his chessboard. You knew Lushishi's identity and purpose all along. I guessed some of it, only confirmed recently. Mubohan didn't deny it. Your appearance, your poison accelerated this process. Then, what about me? I looked into his eyes. On your chessboard. What am I? Mubohan fell silent. After a long while, he finally spoke, his voice somewhat low. At first, an unexpected but useful chess piece. And now, he stopped talking again. Just then Yanqing suddenly hurried in again, his expression grave. "My lord, madam, news just came in. Lu Shishi is dead." "What?" Mu Bohan and I spoke at the same time. When our people arrived at the villa, she had already breathed her last. She died from poison, but the manner of death is very strange, as if she took another deadly poison herself. There was a letter left on the table, addressed specifically to Madame Lu. Yanqing handed me an unsigned letter. The paper was ordinary, the handwriting on it elegant yet carrying a sense of resolve. "Lu Sixi, by the time you see this letter, I am probably already dead. Don't be surprised I added the extra dose of poison myself. What you found out is correct. I knew all along what poison I was afflicted with, and I knew it was you who did it. I don't blame you, I even want to thank you. The poison you gave me provided me a reason to make him Huoju go crazy for me, make mistakes for me, be damned beyond redemption for me. I hate him. I hate the Hua family even more. My mother was a shamaness from the southern frontier. She saved Huoju's father, old General Hua's life. But he abandoned her after having his way with her. She was driven out of the capital city while pregnant with me, and eventually died a miserable death from illness. Huoju knew perfectly well that I am his half-sister, yet he kept saying he loved me and wanted to marry me. How disgusting. He married you only for power. He treated me well only to atone for sins. To cover up the Hua family's scandal, I've been waiting for a chance to destroy him. Your poison came at just the right time, watching him fall into the abyss step by step for my sake. How wonderful. Now he is finished, my revenge is finally complete. As for you, Lu Sixi, you see things more clearly than me, and you are more ruthless than me. I wish you and Mu Bohan a pleasant cooperation. Lastly, watch out for the people in the palace behind Huju. It is not just the Directorate of Ceremonial. Lu Shishi's final words, the letter slipped from my hands. I stood frozen in place, my whole body ice cold. Huoju and Lu Shishi were actually siblings. He actually fell in love with his own sister, and for her sake he'd stop at nothing. No wonder Lu Shishi hated him so much. No wonder she chose such a desperate way to get revenge. Mu Bohan picked up the letter, quickly read through it. His brows also tightly furrowed. "I didn't expect," he murmured, "it would be like this. This truth was too shocking. If word got out, the Hua family would be completely ruined, never to recover. But at this moment, Lu Shishi's death also meant the most crucial witness to testify against Huoju was gone." "My lord," another guard rushed in. "Someone from the palace has arrived, conveying His Majesty's verbal decree, summoning you and your wife to enter the palace immediately." Mu Bohan and I exchanged a glance. The final moment had arrived. Inside the Hall of Mental Cultivation, the atmosphere was heavy. The Emperor sat behind the imperial desk. His expression gloomy. Huoju knelt below. His official hat askew, his complexion ashen, long gone was his former prestige. Mu Bohan and I stood to the side after paying our respects. Also in the hall were the Chief Justice of the Court of Judicial Review, the Minister of Justice, and several important ministers. Huoju. The Emperor spoke, his voice betraying neither joy nor anger. Mu Bohan has accused you of colluding with the southern frontier and smuggling military supplies with irrefutable evidence. What do you have to say? Huoju frantically kowtowed, tears and snot streaming down his face. Your Majesty, this subject has been wronged. Mu Bohan is framing me. All that so-called evidence was fabricated by him. Your Majesty, please see clearly fabricated. The Emperor picked up a report from the desk. The weapons seized from the underground warehouse at the Xishan mine, were those fabricated too? The confessions from your trusted men you sent to the southern frontier, were those fabricated too? Last night on the Xishan hunting trail, you sent men to ambush Mu Bohan to kill and seize the stolen goods. The Directorate of Ceremonies token and secret letters found on the dead soldiers, were those fabricated too? With each question, Huoju's face grew a shade paler. This subject, he trembled like a leaf. Then suddenly, as if grasping at straws, pointed at me. It is her. It is that vicious woman, Lu Sixi, who framed me. She turned love into hatred, colluded with Mu Bohan, and set me up, Your Majesty. Lu Shishi was poisoned to death by her. She is the real culprit. Everyone's gaze instantly focused on me. Mu Bohan stepped forward, half a step, shielding me behind him. I gently pushed him aside, stepped forward, and knelt down, Your Majesty. My voice was clear and steady. What General Hua said is pure slander. The subject divorced General Hua because he secretly met with Lady Liu on our wedding night. Humiliating the subject, everyone at the general's manor that day can testify to this. My subsequent marriage to Lord Mu was arranged by my parents through a matchmaker. How could there be any collusion or scheming? As for Lady Liu's death, I raised my head and looked directly at the Emperor. This subject rarely left home and had no dealings with Lady Liu. How could I have poisoned her? On the contrary, General Hua sent people to the southern frontier multiple times to find medicine for Lady Liu, traveling through secretive routes. Whether what he sought was medicine or other contraband, I ask your majesty to investigate thoroughly. Lady Liu left a letter before her death that may shed light on the truth. I took out Lu Shishi's letter, which was presented by a eunuch. After reading it, the emperor's face turned extremely ugly, and he furiously threw the letter at Huoju's face. "You bastard. Look at this. Look at it yourself." Huoju picked up the letter, and with just one glance, he was struck as if by lightning. His whole body collapsed to the ground, eyes hollow, as if his very soul had been ripped away. "Number impossible, Shishi, little sister. No." He babbled incoherently, looking like he'd gone mad. "Your Majesty." Mu Bakshan spoke up at the right moment. Lady Liu mentioned in her letter to beware of people in the palace. The enormous profits from General Hu's smuggling likely couldn't have been swallowed by one person alone. When I was ambushed at West Mountain, the other side deployed Directorate of Ceremonies death soldiers. Eunuch Liu, the chief eunuch of the Directorate of Ceremonies, may know something about this. The Emperor's gaze turned sharp. Lu Fu. He let out a cold snort. Summon Lu Fu. Lu Fu was quickly brought in, an old eunuch with a pale, beardless face and sinister eyes. The moment he entered and saw the scene in the hall, his expression changed. "Lu Fu," the Emperor said coldly, "the hunting trail at West Mountain, the Directorate of Ceremonies token and death soldiers. What is going on?" Liu Fu dropped to his knees with a thud. "Your Majesty, this old servant has been wronged. Someone must have stolen the Directorate's token to frame this old servant. This old servant has always been utterly loyal to your Majesty. Search his quarters." The Emperor waved his hand impatiently. The palace guard had already been on standby and immediately set off. Before long, they reported back in a hidden compartment in Lu Fu's bedroom. They found a large amount of gold, silver, and jewels, as well as several secret letters exchanged with a certain force in the southern frontier, and a ledger recording a list of those who shared the spoils. On the list were clearly the names of several court officials, even including a member of the imperial clan. The evidence is ironclad. Lu Fu's face turned ashen, and he collapsed to the ground. The Emperor was furious. "Good, very good. My Directorate of Ceremonial, my court, has actually become a nest for you parasites, Huoju. As a great general colluding with the eunuch faction, smuggling military supplies, committing incest and defying morality. Your crimes are unforgivable. Strip all official positions and noble titles, throw him into the heavenly prison, and execute him on a chosen day. Confiscate the Hua family's property, exile the entire clan, Lu Fu, death by 1,000 cuts. Confiscate all his assets. Everyone on the list, arrest them all for me, investigate thoroughly and punish severely." As soon as the imperial edict was issued, Huoju completely lost his mind, crying and laughing, and was roughly dragged out by the guards. Lu Fu was also taken away. A major case that shook the court and the public thus came to a close. When I walked out of the hall of mental cultivation, the sunlight was a bit blinding. My steps felt a bit unsteady. The great revenge was achieved, and the Liu family's crisis was resolved. But in my heart, there wasn't the satisfaction I had imagined. The handwriting on Lu Shishi's final letter and Huoju's mad appearance at the end alternated before my eyes. Mu Bohan walked beside me, the wound on his shoulder slowing his pace slightly. Tired, he asked a little. I answered honestly, "Go back and rest." He paused. "Things aren't over yet. Cleaning up the court will take time. Your father might get promoted." I knew what he meant. My father had secretly provided quite a few leads in this incident, so he had picked the right side. "Thank you," I said. Mu Bohan glanced at me, but said nothing. In the carriage, we sat facing each other in silence. When we were almost at the Mu residence, he suddenly spoke. "Lu Shishi's letter, did you know its contents beforehand?" "Number," I shook my head. "I only found out after reading it." If you had known earlier about Huaju's relationship with her, would you still have poisoned him? He asked. I was silent for a long time. Yes, I finally said, but maybe I would have used a different method. Mubohan didn't ask any more questions after returning to the Mu residence. Everything seemed to return to normal. Yet it also seemed like something was different on the day Huaju was executed. I didn't go to watch. Xiaodao said that when Huju was escorted to the execution ground, he kept muttering Sister Shishi over and over, completely deranged. Lu Shishi's remains were buried somewhere by people Mubohan sent, without a tombstone. The Hu family fell apart like monkeys scattering when the tree falls. The Lu family remained safe and sound thanks to my father's contributions, and he even got promoted half a rank. Days passed one by one. Mubohan and I remained courteous to each other as always. He was still busy. While I began learning to manage some affairs of the Mu residence, occasionally returning to the Lu family to visit my parents, we rarely mentioned that deal, and there was almost no intimacy between us as husband and wife. But everyone in the residence treated me with increasing respect. Mubohan would sometimes come back for dinner, would ask about my daily life, and even bring me some novel little trinkets from outside. Very plain, yet there was a strange kind of harmony. Until a month later, Mubohan's injuries had mostly healed. That evening, he came to my courtyard holding an old sandalwood box in his hands. What is this? I asked. Left behind by my mother. He opened the box. Inside was a faded embroidered handkerchief, a small silver lock engraved with strange patterns, and several letters written in elegant handwriting. About my origins. He looked at me. The clues you mentioned last time helped me find this. I really am not the Mu family's biological child. My mother was a descendant of the southern frontier royal bloodline who had been living in exile. I held my breath. You were telling me all this. Our deal, he interrupted me. His gaze deep as he looked at me. What I promised you, I've done. Huaju is dead. The Lu family is safe. What you promised me, you've also fulfilled. He closed the box. The deal is over. My heart inexplicably felt empty for a moment. So what? I heard my own calm voice. Is Lord Mu going to give me a divorce document? Mubohan stepped forward. Very close. I could smell the crisp, cool scent on him. Number, he said, his voice low but exceptionally clear. The deal is over, but Mubohan doesn't want to let go of Lu Sixi, if you are willing. I looked up, falling into his bottomless eyes. Some words didn't need to be said. A single glance was enough to understand. Outside the window, the moonlight was just right. Inside the room, the candlelight was warm. After a long while, I gently nodded, okay, closer, closer, even closer. He kissed my lips, nuptial wine. So this is the ancient version of cross-cupped wine. Two people intertwining their arms while drinking looks pretty romantic, right? But think about it. What if one of them has shaky hands and spills the wine? How awkward, plus ancient wine had such high alcohol content. Wouldn't they get totally wasted after drinking? But then again, when our female lead in Mubohan drank this nuptial wine, the atmosphere was absolutely amazing. It was clearly a transactional marriage, but they somehow made it feel like never letting each other down in this lifetime. As expected, good-looking people make even drinking wine this dramatic.